Welcome into this beautiful Wednesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Mike Renner. He's Kyle Long. We got a special guest joining. He'll be here every single Wednesday. You may know him from the Vikings, Giants, Rams, Lions, Jaguars, Titans, Jets, Bills, or 49ers. It's former NFL defensive lineman Leger Douzable. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited for this, to talk football with you guys. Like you said, Mike, I'll be here every Wednesday. So this will kind of be like a locker room type feel, barbershop type feel. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we already had it going upstairs before. You know, we're downstairs here at the studio, but we were upstairs saying good morning. We were talking ball a little bit, talking some smack. We were actually watching.
We have to watch the tape.
We were watching 2014 footage from the New York Jets versus the Bears on Monday night. It was some fun stuff. I moved a lot better back then.
I think we both did.
We're happy to have you, dude.
Appreciate
you get
it,
an
man.
O-line perspective here with myself. You get a lot of deep dive, analytical, scouting stuff from Mike. Like it's almost like having a GM here. But now we get a D-lineman. They're going to keep me honest. It's like the debate last night.
I love it. I love it.
We do have to worry, though. So, Kyle, people are calling you out in the chat and in the comments for your homerism of the Chiefs and Bears. Now, do we have to worry about the Jets homerism?
I did pick the Jets to win it all. So, to me, and it wasn't a homer pick. It was literally based off what I saw with my own two eyes. Now, after Monday's game, again, San Francisco most likely will be there at the end of the year. So I would preface that by saying that team has also been together a lot long. You know this, Kyle. Familiarity, continuity is a real thing, even though a couple of their key pieces miss a lot of training camp, but they just have the familiarity with each other, where that was the first time that Jets offense had been out there. And I thought Aaron Rodgers looked good in spurts. The biggest question was the defense, for sure, stopping the run. People could say, well, they really missed Hassan Reddick. I don't know if he would have had much help in regards to stopping the run for San Fran.
Yeah, you weren't really looking to pass rush as a Jets defender. Exactly. It was kind of like hold on for dear life in the running game. I think for San Francisco, you talk about continuity, you talk about how good that group is. They're going to be around at the end. They found new ways to beat you here. They got a new right guard, Dominic Puni. The running game with Jordan Mason, they look to be dangerous in more ways than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I didn't. So I picked Jets to win the Super Bowl as well. And I didn't feel terrible about it after I went back and watched the film.
Correct.
I was like, oh, the 49ers are kind of just a house. Like they kind of just ran into a buzzsaw with how good they were in the running game and how little kind of play. I think the Jets will want to go back to the drawing board with their run defense.
I'm not panicking on the Jets.
But I'm not panicking.
No, and I know we're going to talk about this later too, but I think you do have to give credit to Kyle Shanahan. He's one of the best offensive minds, if not the best in the NFL in regards to creating different matchups. He plays positionless football. You usually hear that on the defensive side, Kyle, but he does it on the offensive side. That's what makes it so hard to defend that 49ers offense.
All right, show we got on tap for you guys today. We have our first off the ball segment, going to hit a few storylines throughout the NFL. We have our deep dive segment that we're going to do specifically every single Wednesday, where each one of us picks something around the NFL that we want to really get into the weeds on and discuss a little bit further for you guys. And then we have our favorite segment of the week, the Mailbag segment, where we get to answer your guys' questions. And I believe we're going to have a little demonstration. So if you're just listening to the podcast version, you may want to flip over to the YouTube channel at some point in time, because you're going to get some.
We'll be getting out of our seats here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
So let's get into it with the first off the ball segment. And the news we want to hit off the top, Justin Fields named starter already for the Week 2 game as the Steelers go and travel to Denver, I believe, to face the San Francisco, the Denver Broncos, the team that plays in Denver. So what do we think of this, and what do we make of Justin Fields' start?
You get a quarterback like Russell Wilson, and obviously the mobility that he has naturally, and it's kind of declined over the years, the things we used to see Russell do, but he can still throw the football well. Well, now you get Russell, and he's injured, so we got Justin Fields in. So not only do you have a healthy quarterback with some experience in the National Football League filling in for you, I'm not pushing the panic button, because there's also things you can do with Justin Fields that just outmatch the defense's physical ability, athletic ability. The guy can get to edges. He runs like a running back. When we see a guy like Anthony Richardson in the open field, that's the kind of athlete that Justin Fields is. And he was kind of underappreciated in Chicago. And I will say, I think they're going to be just fine. I don't know if they're much worse off than having Russell Wilson in there at quarterback.
Fellas, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, I had Justin Fields taking over the starting job by week 4 anyway. And I honestly thought he should have started week 1. When you just look at the breakdown of Arthur Smith and what he expects his quarterbacks to do. You look at the mobile quarterbacks he's had in his past, whether Mariota or Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. I think Justin Fields fits that mold in regards to the RPO game, and then also having the quarterback be able to move. Like Russell can move, but he can't move as well as he used to.
Yep.
And you alluded to that as well. I thought Justin Fields played really well in regards to not turning it over. That's always been his biggest thing, right? Turning the football over, killer plays. You know, this being a Chicago Bear. I thought he was efficient with the football. Now, it did worry me when they had a chance to essentially end the game, that quarterback center exchange, which was an issue for him during training camp.
Yep.
It reared his ugly's head at the wrong part at the end of the game. But thankfully, you know, you have TJ Watt on the other side. He's a game closer. It doesn't really matter. But I really love that he was efficient. He kind of sought out George Pickens because that was a big question as well. Which quarterback was going to be able to really untap the talent that he has? I thought Justin Fields did a really good job doing that. And then at the end of the day, with that defense, I think they're just looking for a guy not to mess it up, right? Don't lose the game for us. With our defense, we're going to have a chance in every game. And the crazy thing is, guys, when we look at this division, everybody would say it's the hardest division in football. And everybody would say this is probably going to be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. Well, I know it's early and it's only week 1. Everybody else in the division is over.
Yeah.
And now they get a rookie quarterback this week in Bo Nix.
Yep.
Could the Steelers potentially be 2-0 after week 2?
Yeah, and the guy we crowned in the preseason, Bo Nix, is going to be going against TJ Watt. To your point, that defense keeps them in the games every single time. It doesn't matter if they're playing against the best team in the league. You know, they've got a chance because of their defense. TJ Watt's going to be around the ball the whole time. And Justin Fields is, honestly, the upside for this guy is unbelievable.
Correct.
Like, if you go watch his highlight film, you'd say that's the best player ever. If you watch his low-light film, you'd say this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So which version of that are we going to see with a week of having that playbook tailored to Justin Fields?
And I think from what I saw in the offense, and I said this on the Monday recap show, it was the best I've seen someone scheme to Justin Fields' strengths. I was unsure what Arthur Smith was going to do offensively because when he had Desmond Ridder in Atlanta, who can run himself. You know, he's fast. He's maybe not the pure runner that Fields is from like a dynamism standpoint, but he ran like a 4.5 coming out. He didn't get him involved in the running game in Atlanta. So that's what I was worried about, that they weren't going to – it was just going to be the same under center run game that Arthur Smith's known for. But he used Fields a lot. And I believe the most designed runs of any quarterback in week 1. And when that's the case, and what they want to do offensively is obviously run the football because you really don't have the horses to pass, I think Justin gives you the better chance to win, flat out. Sure. He just flat out does. And also, if you're a Bears fan, if he plays 51% of the snaps, you get a 4th-round pick.
I was happy to see him out there, but also you talked about tapping into the potential of George Pickens.
Yeah.
I look at the connection that him and DJ Moore had in Chicago, and it's kind of like you got to find the guy that's going to make hay for you. That's George Pickens, without a doubt, in Pittsburgh. They got to have that connection going on.
And to Mike's point, right, using Justin Fields' skill set specifically in the run game, you know this, Kyle's offensive lineman, you're +1 when you're able to do that, right?
Got to account for another guy.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Justin Fields is well put together, so he's a guy that usually just doesn't go down on first contact. So I'm with you, Mike. I was so glad. I think a lot of people had concerns to see what Arthur Smith's game plan would be with Justin Fields, but I would have to give him an A for week 1 versus the Atlanta Falcons.
100%. All right,
and a win.
And a dub. It's always better when you get a dub.
All right, next story up on the docket, a more unfortunate story, shall we say. Adrian Peterson, reportedly $12 million in debt relating to a loan that he took out back in 2016 and a judgment against him in court relating to that loan in 2021, made over $100 million in his NFL career. Maybe why he stuck it all the way out to 36 years old, even though those last few years were tough to watch from him. But I want to have more of a conversation about, since we have 2 former NFL players on it, the financial aspect of playing in the NFL and how difficult it is to not fall into the trap that Adrian Peterson obviously fell into.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're on top of it, even if you're trying to stay ahead of your finances, things are expensive. Kids come into the picture.
For sure.
You know, you could get married, kids. Sometimes guys get married twice, and, you know, it happens. That's commonplace in our society, unfortunately, in 2024. But also the pressures and the luxuries that you get used to when you're playing the National Football League. You know, we're going to the steakhouse on Friday night.
For sure.
Coming. Okay, we're going to get that bottle. We're all going to get this steak and the lobster. And at the end of the night, you know, everybody's got to pay a little bit for it. And sometimes when you're a guy like Adrian Peterson, you talked about his career earnings, people look up to him. People expect things from him. And I think that's a really unfortunate, dark part of our game is, you know, guys having so much pressure on them as the provider. And for a guy like Adrian Peterson, who I've met a few times, a really good dude, obviously a fantastic player in the National Football League. Nobody is safe when it comes to this kind of the financial troubles. You got to stay on top of it. For young players, I would say trust somebody, get somebody in charge that you trust that's smarter than you in this, and just kind of take your hands off the wheel. You go do what you do, which is football, personality. If you do media, do that. But this is part of the unfortunate part of our business.
I hurt hearing stories like this. I actually have a really good relationship with AD. One of the coolest dudes, always had a smile on his face. The strongest handshake in all the NFL, without a question. It's not even close. But you talked about it, Mike, made over $100 million. And Kyle, alluded to some of the points that NFL players deal with on a day-to-day basis. And you did one thing you didn't throw in there is sometimes family members expect things.
Family.
Like guys you grew up with that maybe looked out for you when you were younger. And those are the issues with players that, from 21, 22, 23 years old get millions of dollars or even $100,000 and you've never seen that type of money before. This is why I think this needs to go down to the college ranks, especially with the way that NIL is in college. I think there should be some financial literacy classes. Right now, again, 100%. Is that going to automatically change some of these scenarios? No, but I think it helps in regards to players understanding their finances, whereas if you have no base in regards to what to do with your finances, that money can go fast. Like people don't understand. Uncle Sam is going to get his. Mm-hmm. Your lawyer agent, they're going to get theirs, right? Mortgage due every month. They're going to get theirs. So your number gets cut down, expeditiously, really quick. So you have to be careful in regards to how you use your money. And for some players, again, when they're given a check, their signing bonus right away and you're a first round pick and it's, $3, $4, $5 million, you've never seen that type of money. And in the back of your head, you're like, I'm not going to spend all this. But before you know it, 40% to the government, right? Agent fees.
Get a new car.
Get a new car. Get mama a house.
Yep.
Now you're looking at maybe $500K from $5 million. So it's just again, I hate to hear stories like this. It's common in the NFL. I think, the NFL does have programs in place. And we can do a deep dive in this, Kyle, because you know this. Your rookie year, you come in, you have those classes on Monday after practice, right? And for a player that's coming into the NFL, you're just trying to keep your head above water. On that Monday, you're already tired. You got to put it in perspective. You just played a whole college season, all-star, combine, all that. No time off.
Nope.
Straight into the season, camp and all that.
Pressure gets even more.
Exactly. So a lot of times when they do those classes on Monday, you're just thinking about being home and resting, right? So I think there needs to be a better job in regards to maybe having some ex-players that are kind of associated with each specific team to come in and have those talks with young guys. Yep. That way this doesn't keep happening.
Well, because for every example of a guy who struggles post-football financially, there are examples in every clubhouse, every locker room where guys have had really successful lives after football. And I think when I was growing up, my dad always told me, set yourself up for life because football is this big in your life and then your life continues to go on.
Correct.
So if you don't have a plan for family, if you don't have a plan for keeping yourself busy, if you don't have a plan to work out and stay in shape, then everything kind of goes by the wayside. Next thing you know, it's too late, whether it's financially, from a health standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. Guys need help. It's okay to get help. Early on in your career, latch on to somebody that maybe you're a rookie with and say, let's get a plan together.
Correct.
Let's try to figure out how to dominate this thing called life, because we don't just have to dominate on the field. We have a lot of talent in this world.
Yeah, and to your point, not even guys that have had successful stories after football, guys that have been through things where they may have lost a lot of money. That way they can prevent a young guy from making the same mistake.
Yes, they know where the traffic stops are. They know where in life. They know where all the speed bumps are.
And the other thing that I can't relate to, everyone else and pretty much the entire world can't relate to, is that when you're in the NFL, your career earnings peak at 26.
Yep.
That is your highest your salary has ever been, even if you have a good career after football. 99% of people, 99% of NFLers who even do that, their career earnings still peaked at that second contract, 100%. Right? So you think, every other aspect of life, your earnings just go up, to 40, 50. Usually that's when you're making your most. And it's just completely different. So you kind of think, it's going to keep coming in.
And all those people that are pulling at you don't realize that you're going to reach a cliff here fiscally where the checks stop coming in. And also in the NFL, you get 18 checks. You get a check on Wednesday every single week of the season. But once that offseason hits, the checks stop. So some of these guys don't even realize they get their checks every week. They think this is going to be 52 weeks of
this. They're giving them the option now to get paid year round.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, because we didn't have that.
The NBA has that. Soccer has
that. We didn't have that, but
technically, though, it's actually better for the clubs because they're holding your money.
And they can earn money on the money that they're holding.
So you want it right away, but you also want a sound financial.
But they're going to protect their money, so you know your money's safe.
No question.
All right. We're going to get to some deep dives here in a minute, but first, we're going to take a quick little break.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
All right. Every Wednesday, we're going to each pick our own topic to deep dive, kind of like a show and tell to the class where we really want everyone to know what we've been thinking about this week. So, Leger, since this is your first show,
I get to go first.
Honors. What do you really want to discuss?
So I did a little homework. I have like 3 different topics. How much time do I actually have, Mike?
As much as you want.
Got the floor,
These are
bro.
the deep dives.
Okay, so first one. Usually this happens on Monday, right? Overreaction Monday.
Yeah.
So now I like to do it on Wednesday because you really get to deep dive into the film for every team in the NFL, hopefully by
Let
Wednesday.
it marinate.
Exactly, let it marinate. So I want to ask you guys, like, which teams should panic after only 1 week? And to me, only one team comes to mind. Maybe there's another team in your head. It's the Carolina Panthers. I just think, again, you don't want to overreact to things, but the way that team looked coming out, and they just got boat race, but they look good in certain aspects of the game. I don't feel like in any 3 phases of the game, Carolina looked good. And then they lose their best defensive player probably for the year in Derek Brown, right? So, like, Dave Canales has a track record of getting the most out of quarterbacks, whether it's Geno Smith, whether it's Baker Mayfield. People were thinking hopefully that would happen with Bryce Young. Again, it's only 1 week. I could see this team potentially picking first overall. I know a lot of people thought before the season the Patriots would be the team probably having the first overall pick. Looks like it could be Carolina.
So Ofer potentially here?
I think they're going to squeeze 1, maybe 2 wins.
We heard Calvin Johnson the other night on Sunday Night Football.
He did talk about it.
That playoffs meant so much to me. We won 0 games that year.
That's crazy that Calvin Johnson was on the team and went over.
That guy, and I never really knew what he looked like because he always wore the visor, too. He looks a lot nicer without the visor on. But yeah, to your point, Carolina, man, it's, they haven't been able to get anything going. And the one thing you can look to when you're a team like that is, well, we've got the number 1 pick at quarterback. Well, he hasn't shown up and looked like a guy that was worthy of the number 1 pick. And obviously, hindsight's 20/20 for the Carolina Panthers. But there's a lot of regrets in that building. A lot of bad deals have been made over the last few years. I know the 2nd-round pick for the Carolina Panthers is going to the Chicago Bears next year, so that'll be the 33rd pick. Essentially a second first-rounder for the Bears. We love the Carolina Panthers.
I'm sure you guys do.
We love those guys. Seriously, they've done a great job. I have an overreaction. I'm kind of like, are the Rams in really big trouble right now?
I was going to say the Rams.
Puka Nacua, MCL.
Just because of injuries. I mean,
crazy.
The Panthers obviously get blown out, but then you also lose your best defensive player in Derek Brown.
Correct.
When injuries strike week 1, I'm not going to put the Packers on because it might only be a few weeks for Jordan Love, and that's not like panic worthy.
They're taking water
But
on
the Rams, 4 offensive linemen get banged up.
That's
or
insane.
Obviously, Rob Havenstein didn't even play the game, but 3 other offensive linemen hurt that are probably going to miss at least a few weeks. And you have some big games on the docket with the Cardinals and the 49ers. So if you drop back-to-back games within the NFC West, I think it's just curtains for you in that division. I don't think you're obviously going to win the division.
People will say Cooper Kupp is going to be the answer to all the problems for Matt Stafford. But at what point does Cooper Kupp run out of energy and stamina? He's going to be running all over the damn field for the Rams when Puka Nacua is out.
So I'd push the panic button for them. I think I would push the panic button for the Bengals too, just because of the culture there. I think you have people like whether it's Trent Brown at right tackle, who just looked like you didn't really care in week 1. And, a new free agent signing that you thought was going to help this offensive line really was your biggest liability in week 1, whether it's T. Higgins with this hamstring injury. That hamstring at wide receiver is just something that if you're getting held out for games, those can last months on end. And even when you come back, you might not be the same guy you were before just because of the nature of that injury. So if I'm the Bengals and what I saw from those other wide receivers and just Joe Burrow, and him,
the wrist, man,
working his wrist the entire game. It's like we've seen it before, but also you can't get behind in the AFC North right now. You just can't. The teams are too good. So Yeah, I'm worried about the Bengals. That's the other team.
One thing about Joe Burrow, they said during the broadcast, they were talking about, well, this wrist, it can be kind of like an ACL. You got to get it warmed up a lot.
Throughout the whole game?
And I'm like,
he was getting peppered by New England's defensive line.
How cold is it? He's got to keep that thing warm the whole game.
But I like Mike bringing up the Bengals because they were a team that had concerns with going into the season. I know me and our guy Pete Prisco went back and forth about them. Big Joe Shiesty fan, right? I mean, the guy.
What's not to love?
Exactly. To me, has the most calming presence in the pocket. His pocket awareness is second to none in the NFL. He just knows how to maneuver in the pocket. But the biggest issue for me is his health. Like, he hasn't stayed healthy. And Mike brought it up, the wrist thing. Like, that's a concern when you constantly on the sideline doing this. Like, you would think by now that he would feel comfortable after actually going through a whole training camp that the wrist would be fine.
Yeah.
Then Jamar Chase, where's his mental at, right? He's out there, but is he really out there mentally?
He's been frustrated by this whole deal.
Exactly. I talked to Pete about T. Higgins. He was like, well, they have a real chance to win the Super Bowl. So I told you, I was like, Pete, you got to understand this generation of players, right? Super Bowls are cool, but they want their money. Like, I was like, if he has a sore hamstring, he's not going to play. He's always going to push through it. What happened week one? Not playing week one, hamstring.
He might think his value gets increased by being on the bench and they lose the
football game.
I'm sure he had a great evening after that football game. And I don't know T. Higgins like that, but this is just the new generation. It's like, they need me bad. Go look at our team. We couldn't beat the Patriots. And we have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on the field. So there's my value. I'm T. Higgins.
And then you look at the defense, and I would say since 2022, it's kind of taken a step back with Lou Anarumo. Like, they kind of missed on some draft picks. Dax Hill, they're trying to figure out what he's going to be in that secondary. Is he going to be a corner? Is he going to be safety? That experiment went terribly wrong last year for him. And then Trey Hendrickson wanted a new deal too. So you wonder where he's at mentally. So I just thought the Bengals were just dealing with too many distractions going into this season for them to have success. I remember when I did my bracket for the playoffs, I went back and forth muddled between the Bills and the Bengals, who I was going to put in at the 7th seed. I put the Bengals, but it looks like I may have put the Bills in there at the 7th seed.
And I do think
I've been catching hell about the Bills.
Me too. Me too.
I'm sorry.
It's been one game. We'll see.
Sorry.
To me, it is more the cultural aspect of the Bengals' talent. I'm not worried about. But when you have that many just people unhappy, upset within one locker room, and it shows on the field the way it did.
Success fatigue is what I call it, because Cincinnati Bengals have been a team that have smelled success, been so close to that ultimate success, and they haven't gotten it done. I really feel like fatigue sets in. Only the great ones can keep their locker rooms fired up every week. That's why Andy Reid has those Chiefs ready to rock. Guys like John Harbaugh has a team, even though they're underperforming up front, ready to win, even on the road in prime time.
The last team I'll say, though, Giants. I mean, I don't know if it's panic because they didn't have high expectations, but I think you can just say, hey, this belief that Daniel Jones is all of a sudden going to figure something out. It's just no. That's it. Now, if you look like
I wanted it to happen.
It's not happening.
Yeah. My thing is, do you think this will be wholesale changes after this season?
Giants?
Yeah, because I kind of feel bad for Dable, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is what people don't understand, Kyle, we know this. A lot of times coaches are forced to coach teams that they essentially don't always put together, right? Because the GM has more power. And like, I've known specifically coaches have gone to GMs and be like, no, I need this guy and this guy. And the GM was like, no, this guy's going to be on the roster. And you're forced to coach that guy when you already know that he's not a perfect fit for your scheme.
He's not for me. Yeah.
He's not for me. So it's just like, if you're Dable, it's just like, you got rid of Saquon, which again, I get it, the running backs in regards to paying him, but it looks really bad when a divisional rival gets him and he goes ridiculous on Friday Night Football versus the Green Bay Packers. And then you look at the team, you're like, who do we have that can really threaten down the field besides the neighbors, right? Like, who is scary on this offense? Teams are lining up against this offense and saying, we're not scared of anybody.
Yeah,
like,
you don't scare us.
You don't threaten us at all.
We dare you to do
so
that.
So if you're Dable, it's just like, he kind of got punished for maximizing the talent they had his first year and going to the playoffs. It actually hurt him in the long run because
expectations.
Yeah, well, it's not even expectations. It's like if you knew what you had, you could have just literally started over from square one. Now they're 3 years into this thing and they've kept the same players, and it's just like the talent just really isn't there.
They've been in the wrong stocks, and now he looks at his portfolio. It's a lot of red for
Correct.
Brian Daboll. And unfortunately, I think the answer to your question is yes, it's going to be wholesale change. And there's been guys who are great coaches. I think about when I got drafted to the Bears in 2013. I never got the opportunity to play for the great Lovie Smith because Lovie Smith had just been booted out of Chicago. He took his team to the playoffs a number of times, Super Bowl appearances. I didn't get to play for him because things weren't good enough in that year. Yeah. Wholesale changes, and now Mark Trestman inherits a locker room that isn't his. 2 years later, he's gone. 3 coaches later, now we're looking at Matt Eberflus. These things have lasting impressions on the future of your football team. If you can't get one thing right, it is just the domino effect.
And it, to me, something I talk about a lot in terms of team building is knowing where you are. I think that playoff year fooled them. Joe Shane
100%.
thought they were on the precipice. Everyone with a set of eyes, though, watching that team could have told you this team is not there. And they played like they made 2 off seasons like they were right there. And that's why you're getting blown up.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, didn't they win like the most one-score games like ever that year or something like that?
So everyone with like it was so fluky from so many different perspectives. You could see, and then they went all in on it, and it's like, well, that falls to the GM at the end of the day.
That was a good deep dive.
Yeah, I like
deep
that.
dive.
That was great deep dive.
Really was.
Give it up for Leger.
Kyle, what's your deep dive?
My deep dive is the question marks above my head when I'm watching the Atlanta Falcons on the friggin' TV. And you know these guys probably better than me because you've worked with their coach. You've been around this game long enough. You've watched Kirk Cousins. You broke him down. You know the offensive line in Atlanta, what their strengths are. And obviously the strengths of that offensive line is running the football, setting up Kirk Cousins and whoever the hell the quarterback is in Atlanta for the deep play action stuff every once in a while, but it's got to be that running game. It's all predicated on dominating the line of scrimmage. I didn't see their commitment to doing that, and what I saw was a Kirk Cousins that didn't look to me like he was 100% healthy. I saw him not able to get outside with much confidence. I saw him not being able to plant on that back foot with much confidence, and to me, it does not breed confidence for this Atlanta Falcons team, who a lot of us had going a long way, making a lot of noise in this division and in this conference. So my question to you guys, what did you see from the Atlanta Falcons? Who's to blame? And should I be freaking the you-know-what out about the Falcons?
You know what I always find interesting? Guys that come from different systems. And then, again, you want to put your own spin on it. But some of the principles should stay the same. And I didn't see that from Zach Robinson. And that was concerning for me. You stated it perfect. When you look at the way their offensive line is built, it's built to run the ball. It's like they forgot they have Tyler Algier, even though they do have, Bijan Robinson. Like, you have 2 guys that can get downhill and, like, destroy you in the run game. Yep. And when you look at Sean McVay and what they do, a lot of duo blocks. And for people that don't know what that means, those 2 doubles up front.
Power with no pullers.
Exactly. So the Atlanta Falcons are built like that. They can do that. And you talked about the play action pass after that, those in-breaking routes that Sean McVay is famous for, or even those 7 routes, the corner routes that Cooper Kupp has made famous. Like, they have the personnel to do that. I mean, I love Darnell Mooney. I thought he would be perfect in the slot for them. Again, Kirk Cousins, is he truly healthy? I saw some of the same things you saw, Kyle. Him not being able to step up into the pocket, him not being able to plant off that back foot and release the ball. That interception in the 4th quarter, even though they had played abysmal, they were still in the game. There was no excuse for that interception. Like, that's an interception Kirk Cousins usually never throws. And I wonder, is he truly healthy? I know we were talking on set Monday, and I was saying, if he isn't truly healthy, do they think about maybe putting Michael Penix Jr. in?
I think about it.
The only issue is, I think if you put Michael Penix Jr. in, he's going to ball out. Like,
and
then
never leave the field. That's a Wally Pip.
And I was saying, and do you not? You just gave a dude $100 million. Like, so what do you do in that scenario? So I don't think they're going to do it. But if they have any aspirations to make the playoffs, if Kirk continues to play like this, if he shows that he's not truly healthy, he's showing, because this a lot of times it's mental too. He could be healthy in the Achilles, but maybe he just mentally isn't ready to step back on it and let that ball go. It could be a long year for the Atlanta Falcons, who a lot of people picked to win that division, including me.
I'm curious because I know how much say the quarterbacks have in the first 15 in the game plan. And throughout the course of the week, Zach's obviously talking to his guy, Kirk, and he's saying, how do you feel on a 1 to 10 comfort level on this play? What do you think about this kind of action? When I say action, I'm like, mid-zone away, a boot to the right. That's an action descriptor. Like, what do you feel about this? I wonder if Kirk was just really honest with him and said, I'm not there yet physically to be able to do this, but obviously with my skill set and my experience, we should be able to run this offense the way that you're running it here, protecting my foot. To your point, I think we might see Penix in there, and it's not like Kirk isn't good enough. It's Kirk isn't healthy enough to run the offense that Zach Robinson has in play. That's the one that he has adopted through his years of learning football, and I think that Penix could be the guy to get them to bridge them to a healthy Kirk Cousins.
I 100%. Like Kirk said, no play action. There's flat out, you don't run no play action passes after running the ball 21 times in that game. It's not like they abandoned the run at any point during that game. They still ran Bijan Robinson 18 times. No offensive coordinator in the NFL, I don't care who you are, even your Big Ben, when he said he didn't like to run play action, you still run a few just to keep defenses honest. To not run any means that Kirk was saying, I don't want to run any. Like flat out. Like you just, that
I'm
doesn't
not
happen.
confident in it.
Especially coming from where Zach Robinson came from, right? Sean McVay has been
correct.
Yeah, so like it was,
or even Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings. So it's just like he clearly isn't. It doesn't seem like he's healthy.
So that to me says he's not healthy. And at that point, if you have that part of the game out of the playbook, I'm considering Penix. Now it is, he's a rookie, but he played a ton of football, and it just opens up more things for you that you have to have opened up in today's NFL. If you're going to try to drop back pass every time, when you have solid receiving core, but it's not that spectacular, but you don't have the offensive line to do that, play action gives your offensive line time. Like gives your offensive line a more favorable look more often than not.
I can tell you why too. As an offensive lineman, you run the ball. If I got Leger across from me, I know that he is a better athlete than me. This is why defensive linemen get paid so much money. They're just better athletes. We have to protect our quarterback. What's one way I could cheat? We know the snap count. We know which direction the ball is going, and I've studied you on film. I know what your pass rushes are, but what you can't control is if I come off the ball like it's a run play every single time.
I have to respect
as a defensive lineman, talk a little bit about the effect of, okay, you're getting double, and now it's play action.
Yeah, especially if you've been getting moved off the ball a little bit. In your head, that next time Kyle has comes off low out of his stance as if it's run, you're going to want to anchor and you want to lock out, right? So you have to play that. But it also stops your pass rush, right?
Because now get to do your sexy
exactly
stuff.
Now. So you always hear guys say convert, right?
Yep.
But that takes a little bit of time as far as like getting off and converting off of that power in regards to the run action off of play action. So like it slows defensive linemen down.
It's my best
friend. Because if a guy's just teeing off, guys like Hassan Reddy, they're just teeing off. Well, if you start running towards him and then you give him that hard play action, he's going to have to slow down because he has to set that edge. Then he has to convert. So that gives that quarterback just a half tick more to throw the football downfield.
And if you aren't going to run play action, at least give some chips on TJ Watt.
Don't
let Caleb McGarry. Now,
why does nobody double team? Like, I don't understand that. Why does nobody double team?
I say double team him, don't chip him, because as an offensive lineman,
they hate that.
One thing that I practice all week is how to block one guy. Now you add some guy from the running back room or the tight end room, and you're going to put my family's dinner at risk because he wants to half-ass it. Here's the deal. When you chip these DNs, sometimes they redirect, go across your face. It can be used against you. So do not chip. Put two guys on him, four hands. That's how we handled Aaron Donald.
Correct.
That's how I'm going to try to handle TJ Watt.
Yeah, not like the guy outside. Just
full commitment.
Yeah, like a full tight end inside him.
Yeah, because we talked about this before. You said you'd rather have a guy in a yo position, right?
Yes.
A tight end, rather than have a guy that chips. Because to your point, you can't see where that running back is chipping from. So I've seen guys literally get chipped by a running back, spin into a sack.
Use it.
Exactly. I use it all the time. When you run a natural, and when I say natural, like a Texas game, like the running back's coming, I'd hit the running back and then literally just fall inside. So I just don't get why guys continue to leave him on the island one-on-one. Like, how many more sacks and sack fumbles does this guy have? And again, I love it as a defensive lineman, but it's just like, what are coordinators thinking? Like, if you're going to do it, like you said, put a tight end there and don't like motion him there. Just put him there
or
to slow him down.
2 seconds, not a chip.
Exactly.
2 seconds
and then get on to your route. Exactly.
Take the edge off. Make him convert from a double team to a pass rush.
Because you have to restart your rush. Like if you get hit at the line of scrimmage, you got to restart your rush again. So like
this is why we're here.
For sure.
To do this.
All right, my deep dive. I want to discuss what you guys' thoughts are on the hardest positions for rookies to come in the NFL. Because my theory is that I'll just give you my rankings here.
This is an order here of difficulty.
Oh, this is order of difficulty? I didn't know. Yes, I just think you just put it down and wanted us to rank.
Okay. So I have quarterback is one. I don't think any surprise there. But then I go linebacker, DT, OT, safety, interior offensive line, tight end, defensive end, and then cornerback, wide receiver, running back being the easiest. And I think we see it every single year in terms of at least wide receiver, running back. They're like you're farther away from the ball. You're an athlete. Those tend to translate early. But to me, quarterback, linebacker are, to give an explanation here, such of the cerebral positions that you just have to have a knowledge base.
Responsibility.
You have to see so many different things before you can play at the speed that's required to play at the NFL level. So those guys come in, and more often than not, rookie linebackers are just like, they're lost out there.
Swimming.
You are just trying to keep your head above water. Why I put DT3 is the sheer physicality aspect.
Facts.
You don't get double teams in college that are anything close to what you're getting in the NFL. When you have,
Facts.
You don't line up unless you played maybe against Georgia or Alabama against 330 pounders
or Notre Dame
that are explosive enough to really test you. But even then, it's like a 21-year-old double teaming you versus a 27 and a 30-year-old is just going to hit very differently.
Sure.
So that's why I put DT there, just because it's the level of physicality is so different. Offensive tackle, I think fairly self-explanatory, just dealing with a guy that runs a 4.5.
The best athletes on the planet are trying to kill your friend, and you're in between them. That's the tackle position.
And so then they're on down the line. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts as to what ones maybe I underrated in terms of different.
You want to go first?
Overrated.
I'll go first. Obviously, quarterback, I think, is self-explanatory. I was surprised you didn't have corner higher.
Okay.
I have it at number 2 because it's reactionary. Just imagine, you just talked about as an offensive lineman, knowing the snap count, knowing where you're going. Just imagine with the receivers in this NFL right now. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and then you have to be reactionary to what they're doing, right? So to me, playing corner is the second hardest position in football, just because a lot of times, especially those top corners, they're on the island, there's so much space. Slot corners don't get enough respect in the NFL at all because there's literally so much space.
They cross the formation.
You got guys like Cooper Kupp with angle routes, option routes. You don't know where he's breaking, and you got to be in this hip pocket to get off the field on third down. So I think, to me, corner is the second hardest position in football, 100%, because it's so reactionary. I'm with you on offensive tackle. I have them as number 3. Kyle talked about how defensive linemen are athletes in regards to, we were just talking about TJ Watt. Imagine blocking that guy for 60 snaps a game, 30 of those being passes. And he knows that it's passed. And
it's on TV.
Exactly.
And your mama's watching.
So that, to me, that's the third hardest. I'm with you at linebacker. I think you have to preface it, though, by saying linebacker is such a vague position, right? Because there's outside linebackers inside.
Yeah, I think
you're Mike, right? So that's why I put it as high as I did.
The green dot.
Yeah, it's really hard for rookies to come in and have that green dot from the first year. Guys like Roquan Smith are special. There's not a lot of those guys out there. A lot of times you'll see guys build up to that, right? They won't give them that responsibility their rookie year. There's so much in regards to what you have to do, knowing what the D-line has to do, knowing what the secondary has to do, lining up everybody, having all the checks. So I agree with Mike having that high. And then I went safety because I think in regards to the responsibility in positionless football, safeties have to be able to cover tight ends. They have to be able to be in the box and stop the run. And they need to know the checks for the secondary as well. So I think safety's an underrated spot. So me and Mike had that both at 5. Tight end, just because of the versatility of it, was 6 for me. Blocking.
It's basically, you're also an offensive lineman and a receiver.
So the responsibility you have alone was that. I think I went 7 D tackle because of what Mike talked about. The double teams are a lot different in the NFL than they are in college. Interior offensive lineman gave Kyle some love at 8.
Hey, thank you.
9, I went DN. 10 running back, 11 receiver. We've seen an influx of receivers come in ready from day one.
Yep.
That's the one position, because guys are going to 7-on-7 camps at 7 now, right? So that's the one position guys are coming in ready.
They know everything.
Exactly. They're coming in ready.
Well, that's the one thing I'd push back on corner being too. I do think corner is probably one of the hardest positions in the NFL if we're just talking about it whole. But in terms of getting ready to play in the NFL, you can have live reps on a field 2 blocks away from us here in South Florida against an NFL wide receiver all offseason that are directly translatable to what you're going to do in the league, right? You can't really, as a D lineman, as a DT, you can't have a live double team rep to hold up against. It just, you don't get the same level of on-the-job training in the offseason as you do at the cornerback position, where you can kind of get one-on-one reps against elite guys. And you probably have been for a while, depending on what school you play at.
I think it's obvious the quarterback's number one here on the hardest position for rookies to play. And not only this is the hardest positions for rookies to play, but I'm talking about existing in the NFL.
Correct.
As a quarterback is really hard. And I think about guys like Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. We talked about these guys. So much expectations, particularly if you're a rookie playing quarterback in the NFL, you were probably a high draft pick.
Yep,
so
sure.
I'm going to add that into the equation. Obviously, you talked about linebacker and you talked about cornerback. I'm going to lump all these guys. So quarterback is like the tier 1 difficulty, tier 2 difficulty, linebacker, tackle, safety, and corner, I think is right there at tier 2. And then right below there, I got the interior offensive line and all the rest of them. And the reason I threw the tight end in there is because, to your point, there's so much stuff, run and pass, you have to be responsible for. Like when I get the play call, I hear, three jet scat, Louisiana, Y Reno, Z basic, X Detroit, or whatever it is. I listen to the first 2 words.
That's it. You're good.
And I'm like, okay, scat, let's go. That means we got no running back in protection. It's just us, guys. The receivers, the tight ends, they have to listen to protection, the checks. The tight ends have to know exactly who we're miking. Sometimes the cornerbacks don't even know the mic, or the receivers don't even know the mic. They're just out there running guys off. So for tight ends, it's a little bit of everything. You're an O lineman, but you're also a receiver. I've got them up there. And the rest of these, I really do agree with. I think the 2 bottom positions, receiver and running back, it's kind of like, do you got it or do you not have it? And when you come into the NFL, it's very obvious. Cornerback, so much space, acreage to cover. And for safety, the safeties you are that you pull up to some houses and it says protected by ADT, security system.
Correct.
You are the last line of defense for your team.
For sure.
And what you don't want is corners turning like this. Where's my safety?
I thought you were in the middle of the field. What's going on?
You want the 5-star Yelp review safety back there. So there's a lot of pressure for these safeties to be good. And I remember guys like Eddie Jackson, who came in from Alabama. He told us in training camp, our Alabama team could beat you guys. And he looked at me dead in my eyes and said, and I was like, first off, you're crazy. I'll slap them all in the face. Second off, this guy's really confident. I think he might be right. He comes out, he has like an Ed Reed type season.
He does.
It is really impressive when a safety can play out of the box like that.
100%. And it's also like, same with linebacker, you need the pictures. You need to have seen enough route concepts that you just will not see in college. So you need those pictures in your head. All right, we going to do a little bit of mailbag questions.
Love these.
Right after.
For sure.
This.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
The O-line. I know you missed
All
that.
right.
I missed the O-line.
We had a little call for mailbag questions. Make sure you guys are on the lookout for those. Every Tuesday, I'll be tweeting it out. Kyle will be tweeting it out. Jay will be tweeting it out. So be on the lookout for those if you want your questions answered.
Who is that with the mail right there?
That's a good question.
I don't know where they got
I feel
that.
like we should know the answer. Maybe we'll get it in the
throwback.
chat from Harry.
What do
But
we think that's 80s?
thank
70s?
you guys for the
Earlier?
mailbag questions. We got some good ones. But I'm going to cut you off. I have a mailbag question because while I was sending out the tweets last night, my wife was like, what are you guys doing tomorrow? Kate was asking me about it. And I said, we're doing mailbag. She goes, I got a mailbag question. If you were like a 14, 15-year-old kid going to school and it's Jersey Day at school, and let's say the day's broken into 2 halves. First half of the day, you get an offensive player. Second half of the day, you get a defensive player. From players in the league today, who are you going to wear to school?
I love this question, man. Defensive lineman, so I'm going to go defense first. I'm going to go Mad Max Crosby. I just love everything he embodies as a player, right? The guy never comes off the field. It's rare in today's NFL that a guy literally takes like almost every snap at the edge position at that, and it seems like he never gets tired, right? Hits you with an assortment of moves, plays the game the right way, has a little bit of edge to him as well. He literally fits the description of what a Raider would be in 2024, right?
Yes.
So, like, he would be my defensive guy.
Cigars, tattoos.
Oh, 100%. 100%. He would be my defensive guy. And I'm going to cheat a little bit on offense. I'm going with a guy that kind of plays both ways. Patrick Ricard, the fullback from the Baltimore Ravens.
You are a cheater.
Come on, man. Baltimore
42.
Ravens. This is a guy that can play O-line,
He's 295.
fullback, D-tackle. So I'm like, yo, that's my type of guy. Versatility. That was me in the league. I played multiple positions on the defensive line. I love that he plays fullback as well. And also they put him at tight end. Like, they put him everywhere. So he would be my offensive guy.
Those are good. Mike, who do you
All right,
got?
I'm going to no Packers on this because growing up, I pretty much just had Packers jerseys. But one jersey I did have was an LT Chargers one because the powder blues are like the sickest that they are. And so if I'm going Chargers in the powder blue, I want Alad McConkey.
Okay.
Because we have the exact same measurables. Like, how many guys are white, 6 foot 180 in the NFL? How many?
A man scored a touchdown on Sunday, too.
So the same measurables, and obviously, like, that's who I would have gone with. Defense side of the ball, I think Micah Parsons, because I love, and that like the throwback with the stars and the blue shoulders, the Micah Parsons 11 with stars and blue shoulders, because I love that jersey. And Micah Parsons, fun as hell to watch.
Micah Parsons, guy who takes advantage of getting chipped and using it.
He does.
Yes,
100%.
Last week. Guys,
100%.
stop chipping these guys. For me, if I was going throwback, I'd go Heath Miller from the Steelers.
I like that.
I grew up in Charlottesville. He's a UVA guy, so I grew up watching him play. But in today's game, it's a no-doubter for me on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to stay away from the linemen. I'm going to get a little sensitive.
Okay.
I'm going Travis Kelce, dude.
Okay.
I'm going Travis Kelce. He's the most popular guy in the world. He's the guy that people love to hate the most in the world.
Guy with the stash,
because he's got this. I like the stash. If I'm rocking a mustache at 15, I get some questions to ask. But I would try to
here's
do
the
it.
thing. You're 15, you rock a Travis Kelce jersey. The ladies are gonna love it.
Ladies,
you're gonna be rolling in
I
it.
asked my mom and dad this question, and dad was thinking for so long that my mom got the answer first, and she said she would probably rock a Travis jersey too.
Okay.
So, but for the defensive side of the ball, this may rub some Chiefs fans the wrong way, but I'm a big Roquan Smith guy. And we talked about Roquan earlier. He was one of the rookies on our team in Chicago, and I just loved everything about that dude. And he's a great time. You can go out with Roquan and have the best time. He's so old school. He's a throwback dude. Roquan Smith would be my jersey.
I love that pick. Would it be a Bears or a Ravens?
It would be a Bears. It would be a 58. I think it was 58, right, in Chicago.
Yeah.
The Urlacher 54 was all over the place. I grew up in Illinois. We used to Urlacher 54s.
Barbed wire tats
were sweet.
They were also everywhere. You remember the barbed wire tat?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get to some of your guys' questions here. Jake Liskow of the Locked On Bengals podcast asks us to demonstrate the physics of a 245-pound edge rusher crumpling a 360-plus pound tackle on speed-to-power rushes.
Okay.
And I think he's referring to Josh Uche putting Trent Brown on his backside.
Yeah.
And 360-plus was a light estimate there from Liskow.
I'm going to back my chair up for this one.
Yeah, let's see if we have enough space here.
So here, I'll back this up. I'll move this right here out of the way. So
I think for a true weight difference, it should be me versus Kyle, but you guys have the better.
You're only going to see our lower half. That's all that matters.
Correct.
Okay. So if you're going to line up here at left end, I'm the right tackle. Okay. Here's what we'll do.
I'm going to talk through what's going on here.
We'll move this. So I'm going to be, let's say I'm the right tackle. Leger's the left end. Yeah. And let's say that all week I've watched film of Leger being able to get to my outside end. I can't get there fast enough, so I'm opening up. Like I'm doing everything I can to cheat, get off the ball. Now he's seen it 5 times. Yep. He's seen me bail on my set, right? I've bailed out. I've given you the swinging gate.
For sure.
Now what's your next move here?
I'll come in here, straight to the arm.
So I've got all my weight flying outside. Now Leger can use that weight against me. It's almost like jiu-jitsu, huh? It's jiu-jitsu. You're throwing the guy using his weight against him.
So this is what, as a defensive lineman, this is what we look at when we watch film on offensive linemen in regards to having a fastball and a changeup off of that, right? So Uche, his fastball speed. I'm going to beat you on the edge. Use my hands, beat you on the edge.
And that's what I see when I close my eyes.
Chop club. So now Kyle, this is a little bit of a chess match, right? He's thinking, well, this guy keeps beating me on the edge or trying to beat me on the edge. I'm going to overset. And like Kyle talked about, once you open up or overset or even open up.
Now my weight's out here.
You have no power, right? Yep. So either he oversets, counter club inside, right? Or he opens up, right?
Oh,
no power.
Open. That's
over his chest.
So when this right foot comes behind me like this, we call that stepping in the bucket as an offensive lineman.
I like that.
Imagine if you step in a bucket and somebody pushes you while your other foot's
going down.
You're going to fall over.
Going down,
It doesn't matter if you're 400 pounds. It doesn't matter if you're Hercules. If we can get you off your spot as rushers, right, Leger, that's where we want to live from a speed to power standpoint.
Correct. So like again, it's a chess game, right? You want to have your fastball and then have your changeup off of your fastball because you're playing this chess match with the offensive lineman each time. Like you're setting a move up for 4 moves down the line where he does do that overset or he opens his chest up and he doesn't have any power on his plant leg. That's when you can go straight over a guy. That's how a guy that's 245 pounds can run over somebody that's 360.
And it's really the defensive line's version of what we were talking about with the play action game earlier. As an offensive lineman, I want to set up my next play action protection for the 4 plays prior to it in the run game. I want to show you the same thing. And now the ball's downtown Julie Brown, and you're going, pass! So thank you for the question, Jake Listro.
Great question.
And I'll just add, that's one of the biggest reasons why when I'm watching edge rushers at the collegiate level, especially speed rushers, can they translate speed to power?
Convert it.
Because
convert
if you can't,
speed to power.
Sorry, convert
it's
speed
an energy
to power.
source.
Because if you can't, OTs will just fly open on you all the time. And if you can't go through them, they'll just sit down on you. And for offensive tackles, why they have to be able to sit down against power and speed to power moves, because if you can't, you'll get it every single time and you can't be on the football field.
And this is why you see offensive tackles trying to cheat the snap every time. Go watch the Kansas City Chiefs. Jawan Taylor does not want to get to the bucket standing. So what he does is he gets a tremendous jump off Patrick Mahomes' snap. Next thing you know, he's big and square and can cover up a rusher.
One of the best to do it, Lane Johnson.
Oh, the best.
And he stays square. I mean, did you see his tape from this last week?
Yes, for Sean Garrett, who's like one of the best bull rushers in the NFL.
I can't believe he's that age still doing. I mean, Trent Williams is doing it too, but still, it's just ridiculous what Lane Johnson put on tape.
These guys are just different.
Man.
Great question, Jake. Next up, Nicholas Balfour asks, can Anthony Richardson learn accuracy with touch passes that sustain drives? Those bombs are epic, but seems hard to replicate too often.
This has been the concern with him, even watching his tape at Florida, right? We kind of talked about this on site in the studio the other day too, right? He can give you the home runs. He can give you the triples. It's the singles and the layups that he misses, right? To build those sustained drives. You got to hit the layups and the singles to have sustained drives, and that's where he's really struggled. Like, everything is pretty. The 60-yard bomb where he's slipping, again, not many guys in the league are doing it. Maybe 1 or 2 are doing what he did with that pass to Alec Pierce. But then when you have a drag route over the middle or a dig route,
we need a strike.
Oversells the ball. Like, that's where he needs to continue to work. And a little bit is footwork. And then a lot of it is him just getting game experience. This kid still has not played a lot of football. I think people tend to forget that. Even at Florida, he was banged up, missed a good portion of last year. So he needs to continue to get reps to get better.
Sometimes you see these pitchers in baseball, or, I often saw it with catchers, and it was made famous in the movie Major League. Do you guys remember the movie Major League?
For sure.
Remember the catcher, Rube, who couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher?
Yeah, he kept running it out there and putting it in his hand.
He would have to narrate Playboy articles to get out of his own head. I'm not saying Anthony Richardson is in his own head, but what I'm saying is Anthony Richardson has 1 mile per hour in which he throws the football. He's got 1 speed, and he's going to rocket that thing in there. The comfort level with layering the football over some of these second-level defenders, being able to throw anticipatory routes. Like we saw Trevor Lawrence throw a touchdown the other day. He threw it over a set of 4 defenders, including Jalen Ramsey at the back of the end zone. When Anthony Richardson reaches a comfort level to where he can layer the football, I do think you'll start to be able to hit some of these touch passes. But that takes time and experience.
Here's the thing. 498 attempts is all Anthony Richardson has between college and the NFL.
That's insane.
That is not even a full college season for a lot of guys nowadays, let alone a full NFL season. So he really is scraping the bottom of the barrel from a pure having played football standpoint. So I think if a guy was inaccurate and he started for 4 years in college and 1 year in the NFL, and this is like a 6-year of football, it might be curtains for a guy like that. But I do think he's played such little football, and the high end is still so great that I think there's meat on the bone from an accuracy perspective. We saw Josh Allen is probably the poster boy for improving his accuracy. He had legitimate reasons why, though, considering his quarterback developmental history going from a JUCO to Wyoming, was 20 when he got drafted. He obviously had a unique sort of upbringing as a quarterback to get better at accuracy. Anthony Richardson was a little bit more polished in terms of where he came from high school, where he came from college, and now to the NFL. But I still think you could see some. And no one besides Josh Allen has completely changed their stripes in that regard. But it won't take much for Richardson, right? If he's just,
I'm not
the worst in the NFL, not the worst in the NFL accuracy, because what I saw was probably.
And you add to the fact that he is the best runner and the best athlete and probably the biggest, baddest dude on any field that he's on, outside of maybe DeForest Buckner, who is, an avatar in his own right. But this guy, Anthony Richardson, provides those mismatches that are just priceless for a coach. And Shane Steichen loves it. And he can, I'm sure, live with some of these misses early but he says develop, and we're going to be just okay.
Right.
So I think you'll see improvement. Obviously, he's never going to be Joe Burrow, but I think you'll see improvement from him as his career develops.
Joe Burrow is over there.
Yeah, right. Well, you don't want to be Joe Burrow at this point. Maybe from an injury standpoint. All right.
Here's one. Leger, do defensive linemen really go on the snap of the ball? I know that's what they say, but it doesn't seem so in practice. Jarius Norwood.
It's just a combination of two, right? Film study on the week. You have to understand when teams. Perfect example. Go back to Monday Night Football game, and I knew Nick Bosa was about to get this sack. You know how I know, Kyle? Because as a defensive lineman, if you let the play clock get that low, right, and you can look, usually, like you're a defensive lineman, you can see it behind the offensive tackle, like it's at 5 seconds. All right, he doesn't have time. Especially when they're doing no sound, right, and it's all head movement. He doesn't have a time to do it 2 times. So when that head comes up, the ball is coming. It's coming, right? So that's when Nick Bosa did that. So that's why I always say, like, when you're on the road against a guy has a good jump off the ball, you can't let it get low in that snap count. Yeah. Because regardless, once that one hits, I'm taking off.
So you're saying for a quarterback, it's really, really disadvantageous to let that clock roll all the way down.
Exactly. So Aaron Rodgers was trying to make multiple checks at the line of scrimmage, and I looked at the clock and I'm like, there's 5 seconds.
3.
Nick Bosa's about to jump this, and that sucks for an offensive lineman.
The worst, because we see the clock too, and we're kind of doing the thing where we're rolling. And if I lean any further, I'm going to fall on my ass.
Oh, you're going to get a flag too, right, for jumping offside.
I've fallen out of my stance before because of that.
Really?
I see the clock and it's like.
So like again, it's a combination of guys, ball key, which we always teach is ball key. Any parts of the ball move, I actually keep movement. Any movement moves, you can take off.
Yep.
You can take off. But in certain scenarios, like the one that Nick Bosa had to sack in, like the quarterback has to be smarter in that regards of just knowing, like when that play clock gets down, if you go on one, good chance the defensive end is going to jump the offensive tackle there, and you're going to put the offensive tackle in not a really good situation.
And you also have to really key in as a defensive lineman, I'm sure, because we're aware of this as offensive linemen. In certain situations, we know that the hard count will get some guys.
Correct.
So what do you guys say? D-Joe, don't jump
off
don't
sides. Don't drop. Earmuffs. We always say earmuffs.
Earmuffs. I remember in Chicago, Akeem would say, D-Joe, D-Joe, D-Joe. He knew we were hard counting. Right. Everybody knows we're hard counting.
It's also why if you're a fan of a home team, and I always get mad at you, got to scream. You got to get it loud. You got to get it loud because if you can take a team out of
and there are smart fans and dumb fans in the NFL. Okay, there are people. The smart fans oftentimes can't afford the tickets to the games. The people that are really diehard fans that would make noise the whole time, they're not the people that can afford the seats right up there on the bench.
Right up there. Yep.
Got to take them out of. Got to put them in silent count. All right, next question.
Smart fans matter.
From Zachary Ament. Thoughts on the fact that as many illegal formation penalties were called on the Ravens offensive line as all the other offensive lines in the league combined?
It's because Ronnie Stanley's stance is a little bit different, okay? Yeah. Usually as an offensive line, gosh, I'm going to have to stand up again in a second, but the offensive lineman, when I'm in my stance, I'm in my stance here, and I have that forward body lean. So my butt is back there, but my head is forward, right? Okay, because we're going to have to be moving this way. Ronnie Stanley at tackle is more of an upright. Correct. He's got an upright stance, so he's not going to be able to reach that head up to the belt of the center. So as a line official, or what do they call it, a line judge?
Yeah, line judge.
The line judge is the one that's like, hey, Stanley's off the ball here. But in training camp, they had a different group of officials that were there at the Baltimore Ravens practice. And Ronnie, being the 9-year veteran, all-pro type that he is, he says, am I okay here because I have this upright stance? Correct. Well, they said, you're okay. Obviously, a different crew, week 1, Chiefs playing the Ravens, and Ronnie Stanley gets made an example out of. And I'm not quite sure how to feel it. We saw it called on the guard on Monday Night Football.
Which is crazy. I've never seen that called on the guard before.
They're calling it on guards, bro. Nobody said it.
John Simpson, right?
John Simpson. So when you're upright, you don't have that head over the center's belt. You're not reaching his butt, his belt area. When you're upright, they say, man, that guy must be cheating because his head's not reaching there.
Well, you have to understand, too, when a new rule gets implemented, there's always an emphasis, especially that first game, to make sure everybody's doing it to the letter of the law. I think why people had an issue with it because it was so one-sided with the Ravens. And you talked about this earlier, Mike. Jawan Taylor, not only was he jumping the snap count,
every time.
He was illegal, too, in this formation. He was never breaking the center's belt line. So it's just like, I think that's why people were so mad because it was so one-sided. It's like, if you're going to call it like that, call it even all the way through. Good Lord.
That's the thing with the NFL. It's like you saw numerous occasions throughout the course of Sunday that were just not flagged. And it's like, if you're going to make a huge example out of it, every single one better be. You better catch every single one.
Consistency is the key.
Because
when are they going to start calling those D linemen for having their damn helmets in the neutral zone? I saw
a couple on Monday night.
They're getting tighter and tighter on that ball.
Because you got to think, like you talked about, the offensive tackle is back, so you can't line off the offensive tackle. You have to line off the ball.
All right, next up, Fairy Dales here says, does yesterday force Joe Douglas to try to make a move in the Hassan Reddick negotiations, or can wait since they played one of the best teams in the league and it is just week 1?
I think you should.
I guess I'll answer this question, right? So we actually kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, saying that we don't know if Hassan Reddick would have been able to stop Jordan Mason running the football for 120 plus yards in that game and 28 carries. The one concern was that the few times the Jets did have the 49ers in 3rd and long, they didn't sniff the quarterback, right? And that was my concern going into this season. More specifically, actually in the interior, right? Because if you look at the history of the Jets, there's always been that guy next to Quentin Williams that can rush. Quentin Jefferson had a career year last year. Sheldon Rankins was another guy that had a career year next to him. Who's that guy? Is it Javon Kinlaw? Is it, Solomon Thomas had a career year in sacks last year as well? But I think they're still missing a guy that can be a bigger body defensive tackle that can push the pocket and get to the quarterback. They don't have that. And I think when you look at it now, I think the trade for John Franklin, the trade away from John Franklin Myers was the worst thing the Jets could ever did.
Because he was what they needed.
Exactly. Game. The versatility that he brings. One, he was the tone setter in the run game on the edge, right? And then they kicked him inside on 3rd down. So he was the most versatile guy they had. I think they were hoping that Chris Clemens could be that guy, but he's not John Franklin Myers. So, and I don't think Chris Clemens played that bad. Like you said, Mike, I went back and watched the tape. A lot of it was scheme. A lot of times, the D-line, they got them on the move, and Kyle Shanahan just had answers for it where they bring the ball out, out the backside. So I think the Jets got out-schemed in that game a lot. They did lose the physical battle, but I don't think it was bad as people actually thought it was. Jordan Mason made a lot of people miss tackles.
They had hats on hats, and then the running back made the one guy miss.
Exactly.
Every running play has one player on defense unaccounted for by nature of the numbers.
Usually the alley guy.
And the coaches always said, if he makes this guy miss, he's going to hit his head on the goalpost. Correct. And quite literally, they had everybody covered. Jordan Mason just didn't hit his head on the goalpost.
And then when guys did get off of blocks, like his stature alone at 5'11", 230 pounds was literally running through arm tackle. So I don't know if Hassan Reddick would have changed the outcome of that game. He in the last 4 years, he has led the league in forced fumbles. So maybe, one of those sacks is a forced fumble that changes it in the favor of the Jets. I just think that the San Francisco 49ers are a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
Even though a lot of guys missed time in regards to Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk, when you've been together for like the last 3 years, that continuity, familiarity is already back. You know what's really scary, though, about them? Like, Brandon Ayuk was obviously rusty. Imagine if he was 100% and he makes those catches. Like, that game is even uglier. Like, that's why they've always been the favorite in the NFC.
Yeah, I think there's no one Hassan Reddick ain't changing what happened.
Yep.
And the thing is, you more want an offseason do-over at this point. You want to not have made that Hassan Reddick trade. You want to not have traded away John Franklin Myers. That, to me, is where I'm at if I'm a Jets fan. All right.
Stan Tucci. Thanks for the question. I love your Italy restaurant.
Avatar.
Yeah. This next one from Elite Guy WWE kind of hit on something we talked about earlier. Is this going to be the 2022 Rams all over again with all the injuries on offense? So I just want to give context to all the injuries that were on offense there. You have Joe Noteboom going to be out a few weeks. You have Rob left tackle, Rob Havenstein, the right tackle, could miss this upcoming week, but could be coming back. You have Kevin Dotson, who's week to week right now, right guard there, I believe. And you have Steve Avila with
and Alaric still suspended right now, right?
Who's that?
Alaric Jackson, is he still suspended?
Oh, yes, he's still out. And then Puka Nacua with the PCL, at least 4 weeks there. So that is...
They're the Lambs this week.
You're talking about almost the whole starting offensive line.
That's tough. That's tough.
But you can't... I mean, it was still unbelievable to watch Matt Stafford operating, like just, bombs going off all around him, and he's just slinging that thing out there, man.
Here's one. Bobby Chumbus said, did you notice Orlando Brown changing his stance and looking better than last year?
Bobby Chumbus, good eyes. It's funny you should ask this question. I was talking to my guy, Orlando Brown Jr., this morning about some of the changes he has made in his stance. And I got to play with him in Kansas City. Obviously, I watched him in Baltimore at the offensive tackle position. Orlando Brown, for people who don't know, I'll squat down, sorority squat for you guys. For people who don't know, Orlando Brown wouldn't fit. Maybe his knees would fit.
I would say only his kneecaps would be in the camera right now.
He is the biggest human being outside of Trent Brown. So Orlando Brown, one thing that he does. Now, he's a left tackle, so invert my stance here. But he used to be like this, okay? He was an upright stance guy with a wide set stagger here. And one thing that he really struggled to do was get off the ball, get some depth early. And when you're in this position, you're already extended, so you're not coiled up to jump out of there. Lane Johnson is like this, boom. So Orlando Brown, what does he do now? He's tightened down. He's tightened the knees down, and it's not necessarily closing his feet down. What he has done is he has coiled. He brings that outside knee in to coil up, and he loads up that front quad because now he's ready to be shot out of a cannon out of his stance. Spoke to him. He says he's been in the weight room more than ever this offseason, and throughout the early part of this preseason, he feels as good as he's ever felt. So, Orlando Brown, kudos to you.
I do want to ask you a question about that, right? Because as a defensive lineman, I'm looking at the stance and talking about how he's coiled that knee in. We know it's pass all the way.
It's a tell.
Okay, so I was like, what's the chess match in regards to disguising that run pass?
The issue with that is a guy like Orlando Brown, who is so damn big, you're going to have to give a little bit of a tell. Yep. One thing he struggles with is on the backside of that mid-zone game, backside of inside zone, getting that 3 technique cut off because all the things that make him such a strength and protection at times, being so large, can work to his detriment in the run game, getting those guys cut off. So I'm interested to see, like you're talking about, how's he going to mix up the tells? How's he going to mix up that stance? When everybody in the stadium knows that you're going to, if it's a play where everybody in the stadium knows you're going to pass, you can line up.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like 3rd and long.
If everybody knows we're going to run, you're going to line up in your coiled up stance and come off the ball. But it's those tweener downs. If it's a 3rd and 2, if it's a 2nd and 4 or 5, do we have an opportunity to go play action? What kind of stance is Orlando Brown going to do? But I like the change.
Last one here. El Duderino asks, "You got anything left? Bears need you at right guard."
How much? How much? And do you
Let's
let
look up the
lefties
cap
snap?
space. Let's look up the cap space for the Bears right now.
About $60 million.
Oh,
they got plenty of cash.
They got it.
Tell me what's the cap space? We're going to take a look at it right now.
The Bears, $8.5 million. Is that getting you there?
8.5 works.
You want the rest of the cap?
That'll work. I'll just take it off the top. No, I'm happy here. You got the guys in your building, okay? Some of the things that I saw were right guard tripping the center. You know what I'm saying? Miscommunication, missed hands. But it's week 1, obviously, and you're playing against Sweat. You're playing against Simmons. Don't panic, Bears fans, okay? This guy's young, the quarterback. He's young. The defense is great. And obviously, it was a 3-phase victory, 2-phase victory for the Bears this past week. And hopefully that third phase shows up against the Texans. Yeah.
All right, there you have it. That's our show.
That was fun, Leger.
It was, man.
Fantastic one. Thank you for all the questions. Make sure to send those in next Tuesday if you want your guys' question answered. And remember to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get them. Really helps us a lot. Until next time, keep pushing.
Holla.